Okay, this is another one from Feli from Germany. Reverse culture shock returning to Germany from the USA. This is culture shock from her going to Germany from the United States and having it in reverse. So let's find out what this is all about. Feli from Germany. Please click like, share, and subscribe for her, as well as like, share, and subscribe for Scott Dova's Interesting World. Thank you very much. Let's see what's going on here.
Wait, why is everything so different in Germany suddenly? I was only gone for a few months. Or, wait, have I changed?
You know, if you're living in another country, again, I lived in Bermuda for 4 years, but that was my first memories. When you're living outside of your comfort zone or things that you know, and things do things a little bit differently, you tend to adapt. Okay, and you tend to adapt to those things, and you notice the differences. I noticed differences when I was in Germany for the week, just for that 10 days. Not extraordinary changes, but I noticed changes. And when I got back to the United States, it was almost like I hadn't been there before. But yeah, I can understand where she's coming from.
Hallo, Servus, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Feli. I'm originally from Munich, Germany, but I've been living here in Cincinnati, Ohio, on and off since 2016. In my last video, I talked about the biggest differences between Germany and the US, aka the biggest culture shocks I experienced when I first came here, and the things that I notice now when I come back to the US after a trip back home to Germany. You can find the video up here or in the info box. And I kind of mentioned that I've also experienced reverse culture shock before when going back to Germany. And I asked you guys if you'd want to hear more about that, and you said yes. So this video is going to be all about reverse culture shock. Now, before I share my personal experiences, what does reverse culture shock even mean? I looked it up in different dictionaries, and it turns out that the term doesn't actually show up a lot. I did, however...
If I was to hazard a guess, reverse culture shock would be that when she came to Cincinnati and got adapted to Cincinnati, started doing things in the United States way, an American way, and then goes back and things are a little bit different. You know, maybe things she didn't notice before in Germany, she's starting to notice now because they do things differently in the United States. That's my guess. That's my definition.
Find a Wikipedia entry of it and mentions on different university websites. And I felt like this one from Webster University in St. Louis summarized it pretty well. Reverse culture shock is a term used to describe the feelings of surprise, disorientation, confusion, etc. experienced when people return to their home country and find they do not fit in as they used to. This may be due to a change in perspective, a decrease in excitement, an appreciation for and of different customs, or because during the travels, the home country was idealized. I think this gives a pretty good overview of what reverse culture shock is in general, even though, of course, every person has different experiences with this. Some people might struggle with it after just being abroad for a couple weeks as a tourist. Others might live abroad for years and not have reverse culture shock at all when returning home. For me personally, since I travel back and forth between Germany and the US quite a lot, I often get asked if I feel like a foreigner when I first come back to Germany after being gone for a longer period of time, and if there are things that I missed.
You know, when I was, she mentioned people, tourists, which was what I was. And when I got to Germany, I had culture shock. Okay, I was disoriented, and I was like completely out of my element. Okay, and my brother felt the same thing when he went over to Europe. But he went over to Europe a little before I did. When I got back, it was like, I had acclimated, I had enjoyed the country, I'd gotten used to the country, and then when I got back to the United States, it was almost like I hadn't been gone before. I was like looking at different things from a different perspective, at least for a couple of weeks. Yeah, I think it was a couple of weeks.
About the US when I'm in Germany? The answer is I don't actually experience a lot of reverse culture shock anymore today, but I definitely did at the beginning. When I went home to Germany after my first long-term stay in the US, which was a 5-month-long exchange semester, it was one of the weirdest feelings I've ever experienced. The second I landed on German soil, everything felt so familiar, yet so insanely different. Like, I knew that the streets are a lot narrower in Germany, but in the moment, it felt like they had shrunk even more since I left. And that's how I felt about a lot of things at first. It was like the things that I knew were different about Germany had become even more extreme. And at the time, I experienced that mostly in a negative way. I didn't really notice the positive differences as much. It was almost like I even missed the negative things about the US, as if there were like little quirks that I had gotten used to during my time there.
Yeah, that's what happens. And, now when I went to Germany, the first time I landed, I was out of my place. I was out of my element. I knew I was out of my element. Getting a ticket to go on the train, going into the train station at Frankfurt, walking around. I didn't notice that the streets were narrow. That could be, maybe because I wasn't driving on them. Oh, excuse me. But one of the things I did notice was that I knew I was out of my element. I just knew everything seemed so different. I mean, it just was completely out of And by the time the next day rolled around, we'd gone to Gelsenkirchen to watch the U.S. get the crap kicked out of them by the Czech Republic, and I think I was so angry at the United States I lost my perspective to some extent that I wasn't so out of place anymore. And I started getting used to things and starting seeing things a little bit differently.
Kind of a distorted view on things. I should probably mention that when my exchange semester was over, I really wasn't ready to leave just yet. I had really enjoyed my time in the US and I had been embracing all these new things in the new country. So basically I had overcome the initial culture shock part where you have a hard time.
Yeah, I wasn't ready to leave Germany either at the time when I did. I would have preferred staying another week because I really enjoyed it.
I'm getting used to how things work in the new country and always wish things would be like they are at home. And then, boom, I went through the same thing again at home, just the other way around. As I mentioned, one of the first things that stood out to me was how narrow the streets were and how everything was just so much smaller than in the US. The cars, the fridge, the packaging sizes, the stores, everything really. I also remember that it felt really weird to me that everyone was speaking German. I know that sounds pretty dumb because duh, of course everyone speaks German in Germany. It's your native language, what's your problem? But for some reason, it did feel weird that suddenly everything was in my native language again and there were no language barriers whatsoever.
And I can understand that. Look, when we got to Germany, everybody was speaking German as I expected them to, but I didn't expect. It was like I don't know what these people are saying. But if we ever had to ask for something, you can only do it with the language you know. And so yeah, I that was probably part of my culture shock. You would think that if you're going to Germany, most people are going to speak German. Okay, you would expect that and prepare for that. But when it actually hits you, when people are speaking a different language and you don't understand what they're saying, not that they're talking to you anyway, I understand where she's coming from too.
Suddenly, I was normal again. There was nothing that I had trouble understanding, but I also couldn't play the sorry, I'm an exchange student card anymore, which counted as an excuse for a lot of things. And when I then explained that I was from Germany, people usually reacted with, "You're from Germany? That's so cool." And then it would lead into a whole conversation. Now, I was just one of over 80 million Germans again. Nothing interesting.
I didn't have that kind of experience, but I did have something. I remember I was standing outside this place, and I don't think this guy was German or anything like that, but he spoke a little bit of English, and I'm from the United States, and he's like, "Oh man, good." I was like, "Oh, you had something like that. You had a couple of those instances where where are you from?" And you say United States, and they're like, "Oh wow, that's amazing. That's great. That's fantastic." And then you have questions. Sometimes you have questions. I had two degrees of conversation. One guy actually asked me if I knew Tom Cruise. Okay, and I thought that was a silly question, but okay.
Interesting. And I don't mean that in a, oh, I like being special way, but it did feel weird going from that special outsider role to just being normal again. Then I remember like the first or second day that I was back, I went to the bakery to get some bread rolls for a brunch with friends, and I was in a really good mood, super excited for the good bread that I hadn't had in months. But then it really got to me.
Again, that's something that I learned that I didn't realize about the bread culture in Germany. Is that, in the United States, bread is bread. You get whatever you want, that's fine. But there's a huge bread culture in Germany, and if you don't know it, I mean, there's so many different types of bread, and what she's talking about, going to the local bakery, getting all this different kinds of bread that's available to you.
That the woman behind the counter didn't say hello or you're welcome or wish me a good day. Well, I was being all friendly and polite. And that's when I was like, damn, so that's what tourists mean when they say that Germans are rude to them. I remember that it really ruined my mood that day, even though I should have been used to it. Like, I had never considered Germans to be rude before. I knew that they weren't as overly friendly as customer service workers.
This just reminded me of something. When I went into it was like a newsstand or a bookstore or something like that to buy, and there was a woman behind the counter, and she was looking at me kind of funny. And when I went up to her, it was almost like she was scowling at me, like I'd done something wrong. Maybe it's not okay to browse in Germany, but I was browsing a little bit, and she kept looking at me kind of strange. And when I bought the stuff, it felt like I had done something wrong. She wasn't rude to me. She didn't call me a name or anything like that. But it felt like, see, in the United States, when you go to a place like that, people are smiling, how you doing? They're like, but in where I was there, it was almost like I'd done something wrong.
In the US or in the UK, for example, but I always thought that if anything, I'd prefer the straight to the point way that things worked in Germany. But after I had gotten used to the American way, even I suddenly felt caught off guard by it. And the woman at the bakery wasn't actually being rude. She just asked what I wanted, gave it to me, and told me the price, all with a straight face, and then moved on to the next customer. German efficiency, pretty normal. And yet, I suddenly asked myself, wait, did I do something wrong? And let me tell
Where's the small talk? Where's the chit chat? Where's the smile on the face, letting them know you're happy that you're visiting their business, and that you are you're happy to see them and everything like that. That's something that anybody who's ever worked customer service in the United States will tell you that's a must. Smile on your face, happy to see you, anything else I can do for you, whole 9 yards.
tell you, it's a weird feeling to have, to feel like a stranger in your own country, to feel like you forgot how things work there, or simply don't enjoy it anymore. It kind of makes you ask yourself, where am I at home then? But let's not get too dramatic and move on, because there are a few more things that I had to get used to again in Germany, like the way that people dress, for example. It's just a more fashionable style overall than in Ohio, especially in Munich. Suddenly, I couldn't go everywhere in gym clothes and messy hair anymore without feeling looked at or judged.
Now, I've never been to Munich before, and when upon further reflection, keep in mind it was during the World Cup, so there were a lot of different cultures coming in one. I remember being in the train station in Munich, and not Munich, in Frankfurt, and there's the Trinidadians, there's the French, there's the Poles, there's the Portuguese, there's the Iranians, all different people coming in wearing all different kinds of, and so yeah, I mean, in the United States, if I'm going to the gym, I'm not going to shower or to make my hair nice. I'm just going to dress and whatever and go, and that's normal in the United States. But I didn't pay much attention to what people were wearing, but I could see where she's coming from there, because in the United States, you just don't do stuff like that. You just go as you are, and then you can shower and get yourself cleaned up later.
Plus, for the first time ever, I also experienced the infamous German stare. Quick explanation, a lot of people from other countries that visit Germany always say that Germans stare at them in public. I, having grown up in Germany, obviously never noticed that until my exchange semester in the US. That's when I realized that here, people on the streets don't necessarily look at each other unless they do it with a smile or they greet each other. But besides that, you just look somewhere else. I, however, naturally straight up looked at people in the beginning, and I noticed myself that I was doing something differently there than everyone else. And once I was back in Germany, I really noticed how people just look at each other or stare at each other, if you will, when they pass each other on the sidewalk or on the subway, and I didn't like that at all. I also remember that I found it pretty annoying that you didn't get any free water at restaurants and just had to stay thirsty or pay a fortune for beverages that came in tiny glasses on top of that. Also, nothing I had ever questioned before I went abroad. Nowadays,
Yeah, and again, I've had this discussion with other people from other countries about if you go to the United States, you get water for free. Okay, sometimes we put lemon in it if you ask for it, but you get free drinks and you get free refills. Now there are reasons for that, and I know people have told me this is the why, and it doesn't matter. The point is this: you're used to a procedure in the United States. When I sit on my rear end in a restaurant and I ask for a Coke and it comes, which is great, and it's you know. And here's another thing which I noticed about. And this is one of the bigger things. I asked for, like I said, I told people I went to a Burger King there and I got a double cheeseburger before I knew there was a place I could get brought. Anyway, double cheeseburger, I think I got a Sprite, okay? I get the Sprite, okay? There's no ice in it, okay? For America, that is a no-no, okay? You always put ice unless I ask for you not to, okay? Furthermore, usually at most restaurants, they fill it to the brim with ice. I mean, so you probably have the glass 3/4 full of ice before they put the beverage in it. And you're going, oh, well, they do that to... No, because they're going to give you a free refill, okay? They're going to keep filling it up as many times as you want it to, okay? But that was one of the big things is you get a drink and they bring it in without ice. And that was a culture shock for me.
I can say that I don't experience a lot of culture shock or reverse culture shock anymore, both ways. I said this in the last video too, but I noticed the differences much more in the beginning, and then the more I traveled back and forth, the more I got used to these different realities, and my brain started to kind of just save both places with their individual features. So now when I travel to Germany, even if it's been a few months, it always feels like I was just there yesterday, and I don't get thrown off by the size of things or by people speaking German or anything like that. There are really only a couple small things nowadays that feel weird to me whenever I go back to Germany. One of those things is what I mentioned in the last video too, when I go to a store and people just squeeze by me without saying anything, or when I'm standing in front of a shelf and someone just comes up, steps right in front of me and grabs something out of the shelf without even acknowledging my existence. Well,
now, not in Germany, but my brother and his wife told me when they were going their way to Greece, and they were traveling through France, and they stopped at I think Charles de Gaulle. Because of the situation, they missed their flight and they were going to get rebooked on another one. Well, there was a guy behind them. Okay, my brother, in the United States, when you're in line, you got your place in line. Nobody's going to ditch you. Nobody's going to get in front of you. This guy kept trying to sneak in there, kept trying to sneak in by them so he could get served first before them. And my brother and his wife thought it was very, very rude. And now, I didn't experience what she's talking about in Germany, like when you go to a store, if you go in front of someone who's going to go right in front of you and not respect your space. But, again, in the United States, that's very rude. You just don't do that. But in other countries, it's not considered rude.
I keep saying Entschuldigung every time I even just walk by someone kind of closely, not even touching them, because I'm so used to doing that here in the US, or at least in the Midwest. And all the Germans around me probably just think to themselves, what's she apologizing for? Or another thing is when I want to pay with my card at the checkout, I often forget that you can't just go ahead and pay with it in Germany. You usually have to tell the cashier that you would like to use your card to pay so that they can activate the machine first. Or, depending on the store, you ask if it's possible to pay with card.
And in the United States, you always, I'd probably, I don't want to give percentage, but I'd say 80 to 90% of transactions are done with a card.
And one thing that is very different in Germany is merging onto the freeway, so the Autobahn in Germany. As a driver student in Germany, you're always taught to put the pedal to the metal as soon as you're on the acceleration lane. I can't believe there's no English translation for Vollgas geben. On American freeways or interstates, however, the speeds aren't that high anyway, and the acceleration lanes are significantly longer, so that I don't have to do that here. I mean, I accelerate, of course, but not nearly as much as in Germany.
Yeah, I didn't drive in Germany, so I wouldn't know. And I wasn't in a car in Germany. I never would got into a car. I was always taking the train. But that's interesting to know.
And so whenever I go onto the Autobahn again for the first time, I have to actively remember that the acceleration lane is going to be really short and that I have to fully accelerate and merge over as soon as possible. Last year, I remember there was a moment when my friend in Germany was like, Feli, you do realize that you have to get over, right? Because I was taking my time merging and forgot that the lane was about to end. Other things that I actively notice because I enjoy them a lot is how active everyone is in Germany. I mean, all year round really, but especially in the summer, it's so nice how you can take your bike everywhere, how everything is pedestrian friendly, and that you can just go to the rivers and lakes to have a barbecue.
Again, that was also one of the best things about Germany that I noticed is that the walking culture and the riding. I mean, I get all that, but everything. And granted, I wasn't out in the country like some people might be, but everything was within walking distance. You would walk to where you needed to go, and I guess if I had a bike, I could have ridden if I wanted to go. But that is true because in the United States, it's definitely a driving culture.
And drink wherever you want to. I also enjoy that there's so much public transportation and something that I never appreciated before, that there's so much beautiful old architecture. That was just normal to me growing up there, but now I can actually appreciate that. So those were the things that I've dealt with or still deal with as part of my reverse culture shock back home in Germany. But I know that some of you have experienced this as well. So who of you has also dealt with either culture shock or reverse culture shock before? Let me know in the comments below and share your experiences. Also, please let me know if you would like to see a video about tips on how to deal with culture shock and some other things that I've been taught at intercultural trainings before. I know that's not a topic that will concern all of you, but maybe some of you might find it helpful. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and of course subscribe to my channel for free. And you can also support me by hitting that super thanks button underneath the video, join my Patreon family, or just buy me a drink on buymeacoffee.com. That's such a nice gesture when people do that, so thank you so much. Of course, you can also find me on social media. These are my handles.
Okay, this was from Feli from Germany. I've done some videos with her, and she's very good. And this is Reverse Culture Shock, returning to Germany from the United States. And yeah, there's, look, we're all human beings, and we all have hands, fingers, and all that stuff. But we look at things differently. I talk to a friend of mine all the time about it. I say, look, not everybody looks at things the same way you do. And not everybody in Germany looks at things the same way the people from the United States looks at it. That's just the way it is. And these are interesting, but I really do enjoy these videos. And like I said, I'm on a German kick right now, and I hopefully will get back there soon. But we'll see how that all works out. But thanks for watching. This is please click like, share, and subscribe for Feli from Germany, and like, share, and subscribe from Scott Doe's Interesting World. Thanks for watching.